Welcome to Awakening Mindfulness at Work, a conversation that matters. I'm Pierre
And I'm Sarah Killeen. We are bringing to you conversations and practices to cultivate presence, calm, and balance in the workplace.
So let's begin right here, right now.
Hello, Pierre. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode. I'm very curious to hear what we're going to be speaking about today. Pierre, surprise me.
Okay, yeah. So, Sarah, the topic today is going to be single tasking. I know, revolutionary, isn't it? So, we talked about focus and intention in a previous episode. And this is such an important topic that I actually would like to revisit it today through a slightly different lens. Because we live in a world where multitasking is not just common, it's often celebrated. So for years, we proudly listed on our resumes, excellent multitasker, as if being pulled in 10 different directions was like a badge of honor or something of that sort. And interestingly enough, technology and the algorithms keep reinforcing this message. I just recently got, I don't know if you got it too, Sarah, but I got this message from Chrome that said something along the lines that you can now split this tab in order to multitask more efficiently. So, on one hand, technology clearly helps us in amazing ways, so no doubt about this. And on the other hand, it quietly trains our attention to become fragmented and our mind to become scattered. And Tristan Harris highlighted this so beautifully in his research and his writing. So today, I want to do something simple, but yet very powerful. I would like to describe single tasking, not as a productivity hack, but as a way of being. And I would like to paint a vision of what becomes possible when we move in the direction of single tasking and being more intentional with it. So, this is an invitation to our listeners to experiment with single tasking and see how it feels and what it does. But before I do this, I want to check in with you, Sarah, about what you think about this topic. Is it worth that I try to describe this vision?
Ooh, yeah, I think it's a great topic. And you might have seen me looking down. That's not because I was on my phone or or doing something else. I was just taking notes. Yeah, I think it's a really highly relevant topic. We're in this almost attention deficit these days, and I know we'll be speaking a little bit more about that. But maybe I'll let you first, say what you were reflecting on, and then I'll have plenty to add, I'm sure.
Cool. So we'll start with that kind of description of single tasking. So for a single tasker, think about it like the world becomes the task. And that task is not just a random task that we just pick up out of, randomly. It's a chosen task. It's chosen mindfully. It's something we believe that it's actually going to make a difference. It actually matters. And once we choose and begin, everything else, like other tasks, other worries, outstanding issues, they all move to the background. And one key element here is time. A single tasker sets a time container. And whatever that is, it could be a short increment, like 15 minutes, which is what Sarah and I teach in some of our workshops, or it could be longer. And then we really are in this task for this time period. Now, this is not a deadline. It's not like we're going to finish the task. We may not. But this time is just a time of safety, so our nervous system can relax and can be here. So this time container actually accomplishes many great purposes. First of all, it helps us stay aware of time. without being pressured by it, just more aware of it. It elevates our awareness of time. And second, when the mind wanders, it's much more likely that we're going to notice sooner than later because of that time container and because of that elevated attention and awareness of time. And then third, it gives us a permission to be here, just doing this one thing. And it reassures us that this will not last forever. We're not stuck here forever. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So for all these reasons, it's much more likely that our nervous system can relax and calm down. And that's when our creativity starts to show up, and we start to deepen how we work on that one task, and some more amazing things start to happen. Now, of course, the mind is going to wander here and there. And that's okay. What we do is, this is where mindfulness practices come into play. The trained mind will notice the wandering sooner than later. And instead of turning it into a big deal, we just gently bring our attention back to the task. And then at the end of that time period, whatever it is, we pause and we acknowledge the effort that we put in, regardless whether the task is complete or not. And then we can intentionally decide, do we move forward? Do we continue? Or do we switch? Or do we stop? So, what do you think, Sarah? I'm very
Many
much looking
things.
forward to more insights. Yeah, this is
Yes,
such
thanks
an
so much
interesting
for
topic.
yes, thanks so much for outlining a few things already. What came up for me as you were describing the single task and what it might look like were twofold. So first of all, what might stand in the way, and second of all, what are some key words that personally have helped me single task and that we have seen help people. So maybe I'll start with the first one with the challenges really quickly. What I see when I look into workplaces, I look outside, as a few things. First of all, the fact that we are now hybrid slash remote workers, many of us, does increase the complexity of, obviously, the workplace is more complex. We are working less in person, which means that we have a lot of tabs that are open. Obviously, when we are just working in the same room as someone else and it's a conversation and we're looking at each other, it's harder to be on the side, opening a different tab and working on another task, right? So I think that added a lot of complexity to the picture. Working, mostly on computers, being in calls for some of us that are, having work calls and having all those tabs open. This is definitely adding to the challenge of being less focused on what I am doing, because I'm not just in a conversation with one person in the same room anymore. So that's one. And then screens, like I said, screens allow you to be anywhere, anytime as well. So you could be in a thousand different places at the same time, through your screen, through I say thanks to internet, because obviously it's come with some wonderful technologies, but that is one element that doesn't make it easier, right, to stay focused on the one task. And then the to-dos are getting bigger. Our to-dos, our lists of things that need to be done, are getting longer and longer. We are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to be that productive, as in get so many things done. And we were talking about that in a different episode. So maybe some of you that are listening that didn't listen to that episode on productivity yet, that's a good one as well. What does it mean to get something done well in a way that's sustainable? But some of those are, I think, are key challenges that maybe back in the days we didn't necessarily have. So that's the first thing that came up for me. And then one of the cures to that, I'd say, um, is both intention intention and discipline. So we've also spoken about that in the past. Multitasking is a distraction sometimes because we're bored, a distraction that becomes a habit and potentially even an addiction So that's something I maybe I'll just repeat that. Multitasking is a distraction very often, a distraction that has become a habit that might even be right now an addiction. So intention and discipline are two key words, and we can dive a little bit deeper into these. But two key concepts that I think have helped me personally, and are helping people in the world to make sure they are in the lane. They're staying in the lane, and they are working that single task. I don't know if you want to comment on that first before we go into that, or what's coming up for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was good to review and bring up some of the challenges, because this is not easy, and there are so many forces that can take us off track. Now, I think you may have mentioned this, Sarah. So there are also the internal forces. So there are the external ones that Sarah talked about quite a bit, and then there are the internal ones, which is what's happening for us inside. So the potential. Sometimes it could be the fear of facing that single task, which keeps us busy with other things, like
The boredom.
avoidance of the task. Yeah, it could be boredom. It could be fear of missing out. That, oh, what am I missing out? I can't. I have to be on the no, otherwise
Mm.
I'm gonna fall behind.
The anxiety, yeah.
So there's all these internal things that happen. And again, this is exactly where mindfulness and awareness, and starting to become much more able to notice all those, both external and internal forces that are acting on us, and to be able to sort them out, and be intentional about what we do with them. So that's what came up for me. So yeah, looking at the challenges first is such a good way to realize there's so much involved, and it's not easy, and yet we do have choices.
Mm. And it's yes, those are maybe deeply ingrained patterns of how we do things. And
Mhm.
it's also more difficult to single task when everyone around us is multitasking. We might be comparing, we might be, even judging ourselves, or and comparison is another key topic that we might keep for another episode, as we're trying to keep these, short and sweet. But yes, I guess that one of the questions, if we come back to this idea of intention, being intentional, is what am I? And there's a few questions there that we could, journal journal about. But why would I want to be focused on that one task? Why? What am I getting out of multitasking? What am I getting out of multitasking? And why might I want to single task? Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
which those questions give us an idea of, so it's not just about applying a framework, it's not just about following the theory, but what's in it for us, really. It's easier to really understand what's in it for us, to really ap- try to apply maybe a new way of doing things, or try to
Mhm.
create a new pattern, if we know why that matters to us, and what's the value to us. How is the line with how we want to work, how is the line with how we want to show up in the workplace, in life in general. um, Yes, I'd say journaling around those things would be really good, and then
Mhm.
coming to the
Mhm.
discipline part. And I say discipline in a very positive way. Now I know discipline can have a lot of different, connotations. Um, Discipline as again, as a container. We've spoken about it a few times. Discipline as a help, as a path, as a system. Discipline as a system. So making it easier for ourselves to single task if we know that
Mhm.
there's those external forces that are challenging us, and those internal forces that are challenging us. So maybe it's that system of the 15 minutes that you talked about, and that we teach. How can we help ourselves single task, rather than just
Mhm.
expecting it to be very easy and a success without having a proper system for it?
Mm. Yeah. So what I take from this, Sarah, is it's an invitation for everyone to reflect on those questions and to see what comes up. I think reflection is such an important part of becoming more aware and then potentially leading to some action. And the action, again, the action I invite you to try would be to experiment. Let's say, and whenever you hear this episode, maybe shortly after, like within a day or two, just take 15 minutes and focus on one thing, absolutely focus on that one thing, and just see how you feel afterwards. And then does anything shift for
Mm.
you? So just try it out. Now, it doesn't mean I have just a couple more thoughts to share, and I think we're kind of almost at the time to conclude our episode. But the few things I want to share, it's not that we always need to single task. There are times when we need to be, switching and taking care of different things and switching again. So it's really being mindful and intentional. When do we want to single task and get something important accomplished, and when it would serve us and the people around us better to be in that position to switch tasks and to attend to what's happening in the moment. And by the way, again, there are ways in which we can make switching tasks easier, and that could be another episode we talk about. But just want to mention that this is not an all or nothing, like you just single task. This is much more about choosing when we would do it and being open and flexible. And then the other thing I want to mention is that I said earlier, if your mind wandered, you can just acknowledge it and come back. I'll add one more thought. What if that idea where your mind wandered is a brilliant idea, or an important to do that you don't want to forget? Well, you can jot it down in a safe place and come back quickly. So it's not, again, it's not an either or. It's finding ways to continue to be focused, and yet having just enough flexibility to allow you to be aware what's going on around you, and make sure you're taking care of things. So any last comment from you, Sarah?
Yes, I think one word that summarizes a lot of the things you just mentioned now is presence. So I guess that's also a question, we can ask ourselves is how
Mm,
present do I want to be in this one task? Different tasks will require different degrees of presence, maybe. But yeah, how present do I
mm,
want to be
mhm.
right here, right now? And if I'm not, for example, if I'm multitasking big time and I'm not really present in any one of these, what's the cost? And
Mhm,
what would it look like
mhm.
to be more present, and what would it bring? So presence, yeah, presence, intentionality. Great
Thank
topic.
you.
Thanks, Pierre.